Again, welcome everybody into our webinar today. We're calling this thing Employee Retention, You're Doing It All Wrong. Now, that's a little bit of an on-the-nose title there. You're probably not doing it wrong. There just may be some things that you could be doing differently or maybe a little bit better that will help you retain the employees that are in your stead. I'm Paul Yoakum. I am with FindMojo, and I'm joined by my co-pilot, Lance Garvin. A little bit about us. I'm one of our managing partners and senior consultants. So I do a lot of the training, a lot of facilitating. Some of you we may know personally. I may have trained you or certified you. So, and then Lance, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Hey, I'm Lance Garvin, and I head up sales and business development for FindMojo. I'm thrilled to be here.
Now, some of you might know us from what was called the Culture Works. Just for those of you who maybe have a history with us, just to clarify really quickly, the Culture Works still is in existence. It focuses on coaching and culture and training of that nature. But during the pandemic, we saw that there was a real need for workplace motivation solutions. And so we doubled down and created this new entity, I guess you could call it, called FindMojo, that focuses just on workplace motivation, retention, productivity, things of that nature. So just want to clarify that for those who feel like, oh, wait, I thought I was in a different place. All right, now, as you know, if you've been on a webinar with us before, it's part learning, but it's also part game show. We are not above flat out bribing you for prizes here, for participation. So you'll see that this, I guess that's, I don't know, what is that? Like a gerbil?
I think it's a gerbil, hamster.
Yeah, hamster trying to put on some socks. Well, why do we have this animated GIF? Well, whenever you see this little graphic here on the slide throughout our session today, that's an alert. It's called a prize alert. And you could win fabulous prizes, including first time ever, new FindMojo socks, okay? Nobody has these yet. You could be one of the first winners here. Now, how do you win? Well, you answer questions, you engage with us, you ask questions, or you just get lucky, okay? So be on alert, stick with us. We've only got 30 minutes. We're gonna move through this stuff quick and then get you on your way. And Lance, if there's any questions on the chat or the question panel, feel free to just inject those into our conversation today.
Yeah, you got it. Hey, and by the way, so when people chime in for the socks, chime in on the chat itself. So that's where we'll have you interact with us on this.
Awesome. And Lance will help co-facilitate and moderate here. So, all right, well, why are we here? Well, this has been a problem for a while, not just during the pandemic. It's certainly been exacerbated during the pandemic, but turnover is costing companies a lot of money, right? So if you think about the situation that we're in right now in the state of the workplace, motivation and productivity are at all-time lows. People are burned out. I saw a great quote on LinkedIn the other day. It says, if you have an employee come to you and say, I'm feeling burnt out, it's probably already too late. And stress and anxiety, those factors are all-time highs, especially from a workplace perspective. The cost of turnover is staggering, and we've all been hearing about this, the great resignation of which we're in the midst. Well, let's look at some data that we've uncovered over the last little bit here that relates specifically to what we're talking about. Prior to the pandemic, the cost of voluntary turnover in the United States was $617 billion alone. That's a ton.
Substantial.
That's more than a lot, right? and you know, it'll be interesting to see kind of what that turnover metric is now. Obviously, a lot of people lost their jobs in the pandemic, and so that wasn't voluntary. And now people have options, right? There's a huge unemployment. Unemployment is really, really low. I mean, think about the last time you went anywhere and you didn't see a now hiring or help wanted sign. Well, here's some other factors. This is from a recent Qualtrics study. 50% of leaders are seeking new jobs post-pandemic. Leaders. Our leaders are our corporate cheerleaders. These are our optimists. These are the ones who believe in the mission and the vision. But 50% of them are looking to do something different.
You know what? Not only that, Paul, these are the people that have, quite frankly, the best benefits, the best compensation packages as well. And they're looking to leave.
Compensation, flexibility, work-life balance, all that. Absolutely. Well, speaking of the great resignation, here's an interesting statistic that just popped up. Of those that have quit, now 1 in 5 or 20% actually regret leaving their job. So what's the point? Well, think about if companies could have done things to maybe help them be more fulfilled in the meantime, right? And not leave in the first place. This is a crazy statistic. 75% of Gen Z workers have quit a job for mental health reasons. 50% of millennials have quit for mental health reasons. Now, by 2024, which is just 2 years away, Deloitte says that 75% of the workforce will be made up of Gen Z and millennials. So they're struggling with some challenges there, right? So we as leaders and managers and as co-workers, I think we can help. Speaking of, the average employee prior to the pandemic stayed in a job about 4.4 years on average. But for millennials, it's only 2.9 years. For Gen Z, it's 2.3. So they're not staying in jobs as long as they used to. They're job hopping more often. So if they're going to be a big part of the workforce, that we know that turnover costs a lot of money, you should probably pay attention to that. And last but not least, this is from a CBS Money Watch survey or study, that the cost of losing a senior executive could cost up to 200% of their salary by the time you replace them and onboard them, and all the intellectual property and the intellectual knowledge and all that that's walking out the door. So it's not a rosy picture, but we're optimists and we feel like this is an opportunity, right, for all of us. So let's just do kind of an informal poll here. I'm going to launch it. And again, this will be anonymous, but think back on your own team or department or work group, whatever you want to classify it as, and how many employees have left your team or department in the last year. Let me launch this here. And you can go ahead.
And everybody who's chiming in the chat, we actually have a poll that Paul's putting up here. So.
Hopefully you see it. Can you see it there, Lance? Did it pop? Okay, they can see it. Here it comes. Highly engaged group. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Wow, look at this, socks, huh? Yeah, they want some socks, and we're up to almost 70% participation. This is better than a political vote turnout, right? So can we get to 80%? We're at 74. All right.
Alyssa, we got some good companies on here. Alyssa says 0 isn't a choice. And I think a few people have had 0 people leave.
You know what? So. That's a great point. I don't know who designed this, but we'll have a talking to. I'll talk to myself. You're right. Yeah, maybe you haven't lost any. That's a great point. This assumes that you've lost somebody, right? So none. All right, let's take a look at those of you who did answer that you've lost an employee in the last, or lost employees in the last year. So look at that. It's a pretty even distribution there, Lance.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
But what's even crazier is almost 40% of those that responded, or 40%, almost half of those that responded have lost 5 people in their department in the last year. Now, we could spend the rest of our time talking about what kind of an impact that had on those that were left behind, right? You want to talk about burnout and anxiety and all that stuff. I think it's fair to say that this contributes to it. Absolutely. All right. Thanks everybody for chiming in.
Yeah. And I had some people type in 0 in the chat.
Okay.
And we've got four organizations here, at least 4 people. I don't know if some of these folks are from the same organization or not, but at least 4 people who said 0. So
0.
Good for you guys. That's fantastic.
Keep on doing the good work there. So let's talk just briefly about, how do you calculate the cost of turnover? How do organizations go about figuring out what it costs them? Well, there's a pretty simple formula. Let's just say, for example, you had 100 employees as an organization. Okay. Let's say their average annual salary and bonus, just for the sake of making this easy, is $50,000 a year. Then if you look at your current turnover rate, whatever that is, let's just say this company's turnover rate is 15%. And we want to get it down to 10%, okay? The average replacement cost is about 20% for a person on this salary. For executives and higher cost employees, it could be more, but by the time you exit an employee and onboard a new one, it's about 20% of that $50,000. So when you add this up here, right, your turnover is costing you about $150,000 a year. But if you could get it down just 5%, right, it would only cost you $100,000 a year, which is going to put you at a $50,000 savings. Now, this is a pretty simplistic model, and I'm going to actually share a real calculator with you before our call's over today. But think about this on a bigger scale. In fact, let's look at it, a real world example here. This is an organization that Lance and I worked with. This is if you've ever gone to a doctor or a dentist and you've gotten a patient reminder, a text message beforehand. This is a local company here in Utah where Lance and I are based. They shall remain nameless, but they kind of started that thing. They kind of invented that. And we worked with their senior leadership team and their HR, their chief people officer. And she told us that, so this is $100 million software company, right? That does patient reminder software. In 2018, they had 100% turnover in both their sales and support divisions. So they were having a tough time. We work in a pretty competitive market here. A lot of tech companies, it's really tough to keep talent, right? So they had their whole sales and CS teams turnover. They estimated that cost of turnover was $14 million. So a $100 million software company that's paying $14 million in turnover. Now, what's really interesting, that's staggering, that's sad. But what was really eye-opening for us is we started to look at the people who were leaving and why they were leaving. And of course, what do people say when they leave wow, they want to be judicious, right? They don't want to burn bridges. They either go out with like guns ablazing, or they basically, they sugarcoat it and say, oh, I'm leaving for a better opportunity. So that was the number one reason people were leaving this company. Well, when we started to look at what the better opportunity was, on average, these people were leaving for about $1,200 more a year, some for less, some for more. But when you look at everybody that was classified as leaving as a better opportunity, $1,200 more a year, they're not leaving for a better opportunity. They're leaving for a variety of other reasons. Now we won't go into those details, but the takeaway here is that turnover costs a lot of money. And I mean, $14 million out of a $100 million software company, there's something that needs to be addressed there.
Oh, I wouldn't leave more than for $1,300, just so you know. Write that down.
Duly noted. And on that note, hey, it's sock time.
Yes.
Lance, why don't you pick a couple people out of the chat, out of our roster? Again, this is random. We'll contact you to get your email or your address to ship you these wonderful socks. But who are our lucky winners?
You know what? Totally random. I'm going Kathy Vega. Let's see. I got to write this down. Kathy Vega. And how many did you say? One more?
One more.
Peggy Vasilo Pulu. Peggy, I just crushed your name. I'm so sorry.
Hey, you're getting socks just because of the way Lance tried to pronounce your last name. You're a winner automatically, right? So
she says Greek last name. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Congrats. Now, if you didn't win, hey, don't worry. There's still plenty of opportunity here. All right. So let's do another poll. Okay, so we've established that the cost of turnover is impactful to businesses. It's a real cost. Let's now pivot away from the organizational perspective and let's talk about you as an individual. Let's think about where you're at currently in your job and how happy and fulfilled you are, or are you looking to leave, right? And so this will all merge together here when we talk about how we can help ourselves as well as our employees. But when was the last time you were really excited about your work? We got another poll here, okay? And let me launch this here. Was it, you're happy now? Maybe today you knew you got to come to this awesome webinar, even though you didn't know you could get socks. Has it been the last 6 to 12 months, maybe in the last year? Has it been longer than a year? And your definition of happy or excited is really up to you personally, right? But most people, when they start a new job or a new project or new opportunity, they're pretty excited. They're pretty gung-ho. But over time, things start to get out of alignment, kind of like tires on a car. And next thing you know, people are frustrated. Most people don't say, oh, I'm on a new job, I'm going to phone it in today, right? All right, let's take a look and see here. We've got a pretty good turnout here. Let me end the poll and share the results. Lance, the good news is half of our participants, and there's no doubt it's because they're with us, but half of them, almost 50%, are happy in their jobs right now. They're excited right now about the work. On a Sunday night or a Monday morning, they're looking forward to their week. But the other half, it's been 6 to 12 months or longer than a year. And you know what? In a lot of cases, it's probably not their fault. What are your thoughts on this, Lance? What are your takeaways? Surprise you at all?
No, this is pretty typical. I mean, there are people that are happy right now, but there are a lot of people, and like we're seeing here, about half of the folks here on this webinar are not happy. Some comments on the chat have been so out of alignment, and I was happy last year, but not this year. Restructured and no clarity. So many different aspects to make people not feel as good as they did at one point.
You bring up a great point that a lot of some of this stuff may be out of our control, right? Changing priorities, constant, just chaos, right? In our work lives. And so, we know that not every day is you're 100% all in or 100% all out. There are moments in time that are better than others, right? So now, for those of you who know us, when we talk about being excited, I'm often thinking about my good friend Louis Litt from the TV show Suits, right? When I think about walking into work, do I kind of just drag myself in and got to get through the day? Or do I come off the elevator or into my home office, wherever I'm working from, and I got a spring in my step? I've got a little bit of swagger, a little bit of mojo, right? Like this guy. Feel free to bob your head if you're so inclined. Just sliding into his office, nothing's going to bring him down. Now, you're in the zone when you give somebody a high five and they don't give it back and you don't care, right? We've all been there. So here's the good news. When it comes to finding more passion in our work and more fulfillment for not only ourselves, but for those that we manage, it doesn't often require some sort of major career transition to find a dream job. For a lot of us, it's just making some small course corrections in our chosen path, right? Getting a new assignment, working on a new project, trying something new can reinvigorate us. So, why is motivation so important and so foundational to everything else that we talk about? Well, from a study by Sonia Lubomirsky, professor of psychology at University of California, she found that those who have aligned most of their work with what motivates them, they've stayed in their jobs longer, right? But they also produce higher quality work. They do more work, they have a greater output, they earn higher incomes, and they're more satisfied with their lives overall. Have you ever met anybody who is super happy in life, but completely miserable in their work? It's rare, very rare, right? The line has been blurred. There is no more work-life balance. It's just kind of life right now, right? And the other thing too, is we found is that a lot of the reason that people are leaving it, why this problem still exists, is we have a tendency to treat everybody the same. But individuals differ enormously in what makes them happy. For some, competition, winning, and wealth are the greatest sources of happiness. But for others, feeling competent and socializing are more satisfying. This comes from Dr. Stephen Rice from Ohio State University, right? We treat everybody the same because it's easier, it's fair. But the reality is we're all wired differently. Oh, look at that. Oh. Random. Who knew it was coming? Who knew it was coming?
I didn't even see it coming.
Talk about happiness, Lance.
Yeah.
What do we got? Let's throw out another couple winners here.
Wow. You know what? All of a sudden, this just piles up. All right. Who do we go? Let's go. Debbie Richards. Writing your name down. And how many are we doing? Another more?
Another one. Yeah.
Another one. Let's see. Let's go. Dan Panachita. Dan.
You're challenging yourself with some of those names, Lance. I appreciate. Way to go the extra mile. All right.
I'm stretching.
Now, a lot of you who know us, right, know that we've got this wonderful assessment called the Motivators Assessment. It was based on the results of a 10-year study. We looked at surveys by more than 1 million working adults. And we took all this data to our team of organizational psychologists and clinical psychologists and PhD psychometricians, these really smart people. And we said, listen, we want really to answer a couple of questions. If we're going to try to stem this turnover tide, we need to help people, one, find out what's most important to them in their work right now today, right? What's important today may not have been as important 6 months ago, 12 months ago. Our motivators change rapidly. And then what factors increase and decrease workplace motivation? Which tasks, which motivators can be more engaging to us on certain tasks versus others that aren't? Well, we found a couple of things. First, we found out, where do motivators fit? We've all seen personality assessments that talk about who we are and how we're wired, things like DISC and Myers-Briggs. We've all taken strengths assessments that talk about what I'm good at, what my talents are. Just because you know who you are and what you're good at, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be excited about work. So that's where motivators come in, to measure what we're passionate about, not to replace these other dimensions, but to help supplement them. We also learned about the 23 motivators. Now, some of you who have taken the assessment, you probably may be well-versed in what your motivators are. For those of you who are new, these are the 23 workplace motivators that we all share. You can see them listed up here in alphabetical order. Okay. Things like autonomy, challenge, creativity, developing others, money, service, social responsibility, teamwork. These are all positive concepts. There are no bad motivators, and we all have them. We all share these 23. We just have them in different orders. Okay. And so what about money? When we talk about, well, what are you doing to retain your employees? Well, we're going to pay them more. There was just an article that came out a couple of days ago. In fact, Lance, I think you posted it on your LinkedIn profile about how Microsoft is, to deal with inflation and mitigate turnover, they're paying their employees more. It'll be interesting to see if it actually helps them retain employees. Everybody on this call probably at one point or another in their career has taken a job for money, and it didn't mean that they were satisfied. At some point, money becomes more of a satisfier. It meets needs, and then other things become more important. So we looked at the data. Out of the 23 motivators, money on average ranks number 21 out of 23 for people. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't those that are motivated by money, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, 7% of our entire database of those that we've surveyed have money as a top 7 motivator.
And that's gone down from what it was too.
It has. And I think, for some it became more important during the pandemic, for others maybe less important. So again, you can pay people more money, but it's not a guarantee that they're going to be any more fulfilled in their job and stay longer. So what we recommend is trying to implement other motivators into people's jobs to help them find fulfillment. And I've got a real world case study that kind of illustrates this point. So this is our friend Daria Camarasa. She's a senior vice president of the call centers or service centers for American Express. She's based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She's got 100 people in her call center down there. Now, most call centers or service centers, whatever you want to call them, they have a turnover rate of like 50%. Well, for Daria and her particular service centers, she's in single digits. She's at 9%. She takes a lot of pride in that. She's won like the J.D. Power and Associate Award for the best service centers for 8 years running. And for those of you, if you've had an experience with American Express, I've always had very great positive customer experiences. Well, she had her team of 100 people take the motivators assessment. She was looking to try to re-engage them. She wanted to make sure that that turnover number stayed low. This is pretty interesting. Here's what she found. 35% of those 100 associates that took it had variety as a top 5 motivator. In an inbound call center where you take nothing but repetitive call after call after call. Okay. So she freaked out a little bit. Thought, oh man, how am I? These people are going to realize their jobs don't have any variety in them, and they're going to leave. We said, hold on a second. Let's dig deeper, see if we can find something more. It turned out that 18 of those 35, almost a little over half of them, also had developing others as a motivational concept in their top 5 motivators. And so what we did is we said, you know what? What if we took this group of 18 that have both variety and developing others, and we took them off the phones at certain times when we could, checking the variety box, adding a little bit of newness to their job, and we made them mentors to help onboard new employees. checking the developing other box. Right now, we did this job sculpting process with all 100 employees and found ways to align their work with their motivators. But for this particular group, we found 2 top 5 motivators that we could align in an inbound call center. And what was great is those people that would have turned over, this group, they stayed on average 8.5 months longer in their job than normal. So what's the point? The point is if you can do job sculpting in an inbound call center, you can do it pretty much anywhere, right? So with that, I think we've got another sock giveaway.
I love it. Okay. What do we got? What do we got? You know, I'm looking for something clever, something funny, something that catches my attention.
We've only got a half hour, Lance.
Okay. Ranulf Corbett says, I bet you can't pronounce my name. I did my best. Ranulf, you get socks. And let's see here. Holly Harrington gets socks.
All right. Well, I know we're coming up on the bottom of the hour here, and I know time is valuable to everybody. I know we've just scratched the surface on this, but everybody that attended today, we're going to send you this turnover calculator. It's a simple spreadsheet that you can, there's 2 different versions. You can follow the formula that I walked you through earlier, and you can just put in the numbers based on, these are your numbers, right? There's a simple version, which I already illustrated. Then there's a more advanced version where you can break employees out by their salary level. So you can determine kind of lower income employees, mid-level employees, and senior employees. And you can see how drastically the costs change based on the level of the employee and their salary, right? And again, I don't know what your goals are or what you want to get to, but you know, I think first is kind of being able to understand what is our true cost of turnover, and by just reducing it, how much could we save? And you know what? It's not really a matter of, it's a simple matter of just helping people to find a way to do a little bit more of what they love and a little less of what frustrates them. It can make the whole difference. Well, again, I've talked about this assessment at length, but Lance, why don't you tell them what they win here for participating today?
I would love to. Thanks, Paul. Hey, so a lot of you have probably already taken the motivators assessment. Maybe some of you have not yet. Our gift to you is we'd love you all to take it again. One thing that the pandemic taught us, and we learned over time, is that motivators can change even quicker than we thought. They can change almost overnight depending on what's going on. So we want you all to be able to take the motivators assessment. Bottom left-hand corner, if you see where it says findmojo.com/get-started, fill out that form and we will get you access to the motivators assessment. Our compliments, normally $59. It's yours for free, just for being here today. So wanted to tell you thanks by giving you access to our top product here.
Yeah, if you've taken it, take it again. See what's changed. You can see which motivators have moved the most over the last little while. If you've never taken it, hey, it's a great chance to get started. We can talk about how to, do this with your team, all sorts of cool stuff. Well, you've listened to us drone on long enough. I think that warrants one more sock giveaway here before we wrap up. So Lance, maybe 2 more folks.
Oh, I like it. Okay, let's see here. Let's go. Michelle Graves. She said, me, please, in all caps. Done. And then Nicole O'Hara. All
right, kids. Well, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. Thanks for joining us. I know we went through that pretty quick, but if there's anything we can do to help you with your employee turnover, employee motivation efforts, don't hesitate to reach out. We know you're busy. Thanks for taking time with us. We'll shoot you the recording, share it with everybody in the office. Those that won socks, congrats. We'll reach out to get your addresses so that we can send those to you. And with that, you know what? Have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and be good to each other. Thanks, Lance. We'll see you soon, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.